Hi everybody, Sharon from Mad Paper Crush here. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making some book page envelopes. I don't know about you, but I have a ton of book insides laying around. So books that I've used the cover for altered books and junk journals. And I just have all of these book insides waiting to be used for something. So I wanted to try to make some stuff that I could put in my future journals and have things ready to go for me to collage or decorate to put into different journals. So we're going to be making several different kinds of envelopes out of several different kinds of pages of books that I have. So hopefully this will give you some examples of things that you could do and give you some ideas to start making some of your own. And then you'll have a bunch of envelopes prepped and ready to go to decorate to put into your own journals. So some of the types of envelopes that we're going to be making is some from an older book that has more brittle or fragile book pages in. So very simple, just fold over envelopes with different tuck spots and pockets that I think are fun, and even one with a neat little flap that has a cute little tuck spot over here that I thought was fun. I always like to have hidden pockets in my journals. And then also we're going to be making from a little bit bigger and sturdier book some envelopes using a template from an embossing plate. And then also just some fold over envelopes that I think are great to use for keeping your tags in or putting bigger notes and letters into and things like that. And then the last one, these envelopes actually come from a very large book page, but I cut them down to make two different kinds of envelopes. So we'll be making these as well, and we'll go through them all. So come along and let's make those envelopes. The things that you'll need for this project, the tools that you'll need, so besides your book pages, the tools that you'll need is a ruler, maybe to do some tearing. You'll need some glue, different kinds of glue. I use both of these in making these envelopes. You'll need a cutter and a pair of scissors if you want, and then also an embossing board. So my embossing board has a template for envelopes, and I use this in here as well, and also a pencil. And I think I also use I think this is a 2-inch circle cutter. So those are the tools that you'll need. Oh, and one more thing. You will also need your sewing machine if you want to sew your envelopes, obviously. But all of these envelopes you could make with glue if you wanted to as well. So those are the tools. Let's get going. Okay, so to make the envelopes from your book pages, I'm going to be using a variety of different books just to give you an idea of some of the different things that you can do. So I'm going to be using book pages from this book, which is called Birds, Their Life, Their Ways, Their World. And as you can see, this one, the pages are really big, so you can certainly leave them like that, but you can also cut them down, which you'll see me do. And then I'm also using a book which is called Flowering Plants of the World. And this one's a little bit smaller, but still pretty big. So you want to, consider the size of your book when you are making a book for a specific, an envelope for a specific journal. So it's just something to take into consideration. Also, the pages of these two, they're pretty heavy duty. So it's easier to make an envelope just with one layer of book page. So that's kind of another consideration that you might want to make. And then the last kind of envelope I'm going to be making with just old book pages. So these were from, torn out of an old book, and they are much lighter and a little bit more brittle than the other book pages. So I'll probably be making envelopes a little bit differently based on the types of book pages that I'm using, because I don't want the envelope to fall apart or to rip or something like that. So the way I make them, with these book pages will be a little bit different than how I might do it with these book pages. So let's go ahead and start with the old book pages. So to make old book page envelopes, and this is kind of the size that they're going to end up. I'll just kind of show you a couple of them that I have here, and you can make them taller or smaller based on, how big you make your flap. So that's kind of dependent on that. But the width is going to be the total width of these papers. So before I start making them, I want to make my base piece, which will be, you know, the back and the flap piece. And to do that, I want to glue 2 pieces of paper together just so that I have a beginning stability for these envelopes. Now, I'm just going to be putting a little bit of glue. I like to sew my envelopes. So because I'm going to be sewing them, I'm just going to put a little glue in the middle, you know, so that they stay together as we put the envelopes together. And then I'll sew them and then not have to worry about, you know, sort of these side things that could come apart otherwise. Now, if you're just using glue and you want to, you know, do it like this, I would definitely recommend that you go to the edge with your glue so that it holds together and doesn't, you know, kind of come apart. So I'm just going to do a couple of these, and then if we feel like we want to make more, we can do that. But I'm just going to put 2 book pages together, give them a good rub there so that my glue stick activates. And then we'll go ahead and start making, and sometimes I like to see what, I mean, eventually I'll end up collaging these, so you probably won't see any of these little flourishes or things, which are kind of cute. But sometimes if I can keep them on the outside, I do, just because maybe I'll, you know, want to incorporate them into my collage later. Okay. So now I have my bases for my envelopes, and I'll just put 2 aside. Maybe I'll put that one aside, and I'll just start with 1 here. So the first envelope I'm going to do, once again, I don't want to use a single sheet of book page because it's very light and it might tear with the sewing or while you're putting something in. So it's good to double it up. So to make my pocket on this envelope, all I'm going to do is fold this 1 piece in half. So that gives me my double layer. And then to make a very simple envelope, I just put this right on the bottom, and since I'm going to be sewing, I don't need to worry about these ends that are, you know, flipping up here. And then I'm just going to sew around the entire thing to give me my 1 big pocket here. And then you can decide, you know, how big you want your flap, whether you want it to be, you know, real high or you want it to be lower, like some of the ones I had done before. So we'll kind of decide that later. So that's the first one there. So the second one, I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of some things that you could do. The second one, I'm going to once again use 1 piece of paper as a big pocket in the back here. But then I love little side pockets or tuck spots. So I'm going to take this one, which didn't tear so good, and I'm just going to fold it in half this way. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this one kind of down here so it lines up with my big pocket. But then I'm going to tear off the bottom part. Whoops. So we have a little side pocket. Now you can do this as a tuck spot or a side pocket. Let me make sure I'm lined up here before I tear it, which I wasn't. So I'm just tearing it right at the bottom of both of those pieces. So then you could, you know, just sew around this so you'd have your big pocket and then a little tuck spot. Or what I will probably do is I will sew just these 3 sides of these 2 pieces so that I have my tuck spot. Actually, I'll probably just do a top, just the top here. So I'll sew across the top so that when I sew the whole thing around, I will have all of the sides done. So if that makes sense. So before I sew the back piece on, I'm just going to sew 1 line across there, and then I'll put this down on my back piece, and then we'll go all the way around on 4 sides, and the rest of this will then be done as well for us to make our envelope there. So that's another pretty easy one there. And then this one, I had tried a couple of different things because I really love fold out pockets too. So this is an envelope. When you open it up, it has a little flap that folds out and you have a pocket here, but there's nothing on this side. So I wanted to try to do a pocket on that side as well. So I put a pocket down and then had a flap with a little side pocket over here, which I like a little bit better. But I think one thing I need to do differently is put my little envelope flap in between so it's kind of hidden, even though I could collage over this and it wouldn't make a, you know, it wouldn't matter in that way at all. So let's go ahead and do one of those, and let's see if I can do it a little bit better than I had last time. So I have my back piece here, and I'm going to make my big pocket that goes right here, and then I'm going to make a little flap. So let me just kind of see what we need to do here. So I'm going to fold another piece in half like that. And I'm going to, I think actually I'm going to, and we'll leave it like that. So this will be, actually I want it to go down a little bit so that it's not at the same height. So let me cut that bottom piece off. So I'm going to have it down maybe about 1 inch. And I'm going to cut this bottom piece off. It doesn't look like I have things lined up straight, so let me see if I can figure that out. Okay. Okay, so then I have this piece here. Now, if I wanted to fold out, I'd need to have a little bit of like a hinge or something in here to keep them together. So what I can do is I can put this like this so that when I sew it together, this piece will come over to be my sort of hinge for my fold out here. So I could even hide it even more if I did it like that. And then I do want to, let me just grab another piece of paper here in my book. I do want to have like a pocket or something, because right now it's just a flap. So there's no pocket or something that's over here. Now I could just kind of keep that small, and actually maybe I'll try that for this one since the other ones I did were kind of big. Maybe what I'll do is I will do just a small little tuck spot on this side. Yeah, I kind of like that idea, because then this will fold over and be a small little tuck spot. So for this one, what I'm going to do, I want to make sure I get this in place before I sew the whole thing down. So once again, just on these pieces, probably what I'll do is I will sew, after I line it up, I will sew down around this whole thing, so that'll secure this side of the hinge there. And then I'll probably even just do this side, and then I'll probably sew over it again, just because I want that piece to be adhered, you know, and ready to go before I put it onto my back piece. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to be right back after I sew this one all the way around. Here, wait, let me get these. So for this one, we're going to sew all the way around 4 sides and have 1 pocket. And then for this one, I'm going to take these 2 pieces and sew across the top. And then I'm going to put all the pieces together and sew all the way around the outside for that piece. And then for our last one, for our old book pages, I'm going to take my folded piece and my hinge and my side piece, my flip piece, and I'm first going to sew from on the hinge. I'm going to sew all the way around this piece on my flap, and then I'm just going to sew down this one side. And then once I've done that, I will put this all together, leaving my flap open, and then sew all the way around this piece. So I have a pocket here, I'll have a little tuck spot here, and then this will fold over like this, so that we'll have a nice little flap there. Okay, so I'm gonna go do that sewing and I'll be right back. Okay, next tip for sewing that I didn't mention before. This one, the very first one that I was just gonna sew around the 4 edges, I decided to just sew one little zigzag stitch across the top of the pocket there, because I think that will give a nice, you know, distinction from the book pages. And the other thing that you could do for these is you could distress them a bit before you sew, so that you kind of have that distinction as well. So I just wanted to mention that too, since I decided to go ahead and sew across here before I do my full sew around the whole thing. Okay, quick update for our little flap envelope. You can see I've done my first piece of stitching where I stitched around the flap, making sure to secure my hinge inside of that flap. And then I have this little cute little tuck spot right here that I can put something in. I just wanted to mention that when I sew this one in, I'm actually going to take the hinge and put it in between the folded down piece of paper, so that my pocket, you know, doesn't have the hinge in there, so that things might get caught up on it or something. So I just wanted to, I don't think I really mentioned that, so I just wanted to say that's how I'm going to create the second stitch, which I'm going to do right here. I'm going to make sure my hinge is actually hidden in between these two pieces of paper. Okay, so I'll be right back. Okay, all my sewing's done, so let me just kind of show you what we came up with. I have my first one that we did, which was the very simple, just a folded page to make our pocket there. And then I have this second one, which we made a little side tuck and our big pocket there. So that's how that one turned out. And then our last one, which I really like how it turned out, our little flap there. So I have my flap and with a little tuck spot over here, and then my big pocket here. And as you can see on this one, I didn't do that zigzag stitch across here. And you know, and that's fine. So you can do it both ways and it still, I think, turns out great. So now to make these envelopes, obviously these are, you know, just sort of pages right now, we just are going to fold down the flap. So you can fold the flap all the way down if you want to, or you can leave some space so that if you put something in here that, you know, you don't want to go all the way down into the pocket, we can leave some space here. So I'm just going to fold mine so that they maybe go an inch down over the pocket. So you can see this is a nice big pocket that can go in your journal. Let's see if I can find my journal and I can show you. I don't even know. These may not even fit in this one. But this is my current journal that I'm working on. Oh yeah, they would still fit in there. So I could put that right in, and I could either glue that in once I've got it collaged, or I could paper clip it in, you know, so that it would just kind of sit. Or you could even put it like this so that it's, you know, in your journal, just kind of hanging out, waiting for you to pull it out and, you know, put something in. So there's a lot of options for these, and I love that. Let me just move that out of the way. Okay, and then for my other ones, this one, because I have my little side tuck, I might push this one down a little bit further and leave maybe just a ½ an inch above so that it covers most of my tuck spot. But once again, this is entirely up to you and what you know, how you'd like it to look there. And then my last one, same thing. I want to kind of have my flap so that it's over my, my top flap over my side flap here, just about like that, I think. So easy decision, you just kind of decide. But the great thing is now I have these pockets ready to go for when I want to collage them with whatever theme I'm working on for my next journal. And then I can, you know, if you like to do inking, you can ink around the whole thing, you know, once you've got your collage done and everything like that. So that is our book page envelope. So let me show you our old book page envelopes. Let me show you some ideas for these other types of book pages, and we'll do some of those next. Okay, I have my larger and different book page here. So this is the one from the Flowering Plants book, and these book pages are about 8 1/4 by almost 11 inches. So they're almost the same size as a US standard piece of paper. And you can make envelopes the same way we did with the smaller book pages if you want. You know, you can start layering to get your pockets and things, but you just have to remember you're going to wind up with a bigger envelope. So if you are okay with that and you have a bigger journal you want to put it in, or, you know, kind of create it into a book page or something, that's great. But the nice thing about these kinds of pages, because they're more durable, you can make one envelope out of one book page. So that's what we're going to do first. And actually what I'm going to do for the first kind is I'm going to use my embossing board to make a envelope. So I'm going to take this piece of paper and I'm going to cut it down to 7.5 by 7.5 inches. And I'm doing that so that, so that we can create the envelope with the embossing board using the tool that, you know, is on the embossing board. And I'm actually going to cut off a little from each side so that I can preserve the, you know, the lettering on there, and I don't have one side that just has a big white space on it. So that's all I did there. Okay, so now I have this 7.5 by 7.5 piece of book page, and I'm just double checking to make sure I got that right, because, you know, I cut once and measure twice, even though that's not at all what you're supposed to do. Okay, so this is my embossing board, and I'm going to make some marks on this. So you can follow the template that it gives you here. I'm not going to do that for this one. I'm just going to, I want to create like basically a 5 by 4 or 4.5 inch envelope. So I'm just going to use my own measurements for my scores. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paper, and in a diamond shape there, I'm going to line up the top point with my center point on my embossing board. So at 6 inches here, and the top side, the top right side, we're going to line up flush with the template that we put in on our embossing board. And the first score I'm going to make is going to be at, let me see if I can remember. I think this was, I'm going to do 3 1/4. So I'm just going to make a 3 1/4 inch score right there. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my diamond to the next point and do the same thing, line it up in the same way. And then this time I'm going to score it at 3 3/4 inches. And then I'm going to turn to the next point, and I'm going to go back to my 3 1/4 inch score. And then I'm going to do my last one on my last point here at 3 3/4 inches. So once I have that done, let me move this out of the way so we can take a look at it. You can see that I have a little bit of overlap on my fold. So there's like this little triangle where my score lines crisscrossed at each side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some scissors and cut those little pieces out so that we don't have the overlay when we go to fold our envelope. So I'm making sure that I cut off the whole part of the score. So I don't want any part of that score line left as I cut it out. And so I'm just going to make my 4 little cuts here. Okay, so now you can see I have my little cuts out. So now when we fold it, we'll have a nice, much smoother envelope. And once again, one edge, one top edge or one point is going to be our top flap. So first I'm going to fold in the sides. And then I'm going to fold up the bottom. And then I'm going to fold down the flap at the top. And we have our envelope. Now, the other thing that I like to do when I do envelopes like this, if you can kind of see here, I'll kind of throw one of these in here because it's hard to see. But you can see how this top point there kind of comes above. I can't even use that right. How about this? There, you can kind of see how when I folded the sides in, the bottom point comes up above. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off just a little part of that so that it, you know, just kind of lays flat and nice and you don't have that point sticking out when we glue it. So I'm going to get my cutter out here, and you could certainly just snip this off with, you know, your scissors if you wanted to, but I like to use my cutter, and I don't remember exactly how far it was, but oops, I don't think I got that straight at all. Let me try that again. Line up my envelope there. There we go. That looks better. Okay, so now you can see, and I probably did it just a little too far because now I have the points sticking out over here, but I'm okay with that for this one here. It's no big deal. So now what I'm going to do to finish this envelope off is to add some glue. So I'm going to use my glitter glue, my art glitter glue here. And all I'm going to do is, it's always good to check, you know, where your papers are touching so you kind of know how much to glue so you don't end up gluing it, you know, down to the back of the envelope. So it looks like if I glue on my bottom flap from the outside all the way to the top, I'm good. I just don't want to glue across the top, because if I do that, then I'll be gluing down to the bottom there. So I'm just going to run a little bead of glue right there and a little bead of glue on this side right here. And then fold it up and hold it down for just a second. And I'm going to put my glue away while I'm waiting for that to kind of dry up just a little. And there you go. Now we have a nice, and this one, like I said, I believe is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 by 4.5. So I think that's a great size to add a note card to or something like that. And once again, these can sit right in your journal. You could glue them right in if you have a wide enough page, which I do not. You could also glue it in sideways, which would make a nice side pocket if you would like to do that too. Or you could just use a paper clip and, you know, clip it onto your page either this way or even this way. You could just clip that in there. So that's another example of a nice envelope, book page envelope for you to do. And let's do another one with our book page here. So this one, I'm just going to use one page, and I'm not even going to use a template this time. I'm just going to do this as a trifold envelope. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the bottom up. And this is just basically a third of the way. So, you know, if you were making like a trifold brochure or folded piece of paper to go in an envelope, that's all you're going to do here. So I'm just kind of guesstimating where I want it to be. And I like this picture, so I wanted to make sure that was, you know, part of my pocket of the envelope here. And then the top part, I'm just going to fold down, and I'm going to leave it up just a little bit, so that we have this nice big envelope here. And now these envelopes, now the way I will secure this one, once again, you could just glue this. You could put a bead of glue right here and glue that down. This one, I think that I will sew around again because I do like the look of that, and it gives you a nice secure pocket on there. So what I'm going to do is, with it open like this, I'm just going to sew around these 4 edges to have a nice pocket. So I'll be right back and we'll show you that one. Okay, there it is, quick and easy. And just because this is quick and easy, don't forget that there's probably a ton of different things that you could do to decorate this. So one of the things you could do is add a half circle here, a half punch here, if you wanted to do that. I can do that in just a minute. You can use decorative edge punches to make your flaps nice. You could add, you know, corner rounded circles here. Where I think I have one of those. So if you wanted to just kind of make your flap rounded, you could do that. That gives a nice look to it. So you can see I have a nice rounded punch there. And you could add that little notch there that I love so much. So let me see if I can find my pencil. I don't know where that is. Oh, here it is. And I'm just going to mark this halfway just so because I can never seem to get it right if I don't do it this way. I'm not sure that's halfway. Let's see. What do we got? We got a ½ inch over here, a full inch over there. So if I put it right here, this should be my half about. So once again, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. But then what I can do is I can put my punch in here, and this might be easier before you sew it, just as a, you know, little side note there. And I'm going to line that circle punch right up in the middle, my little line that I made, and decide about how deep I want it. And then I'm just going to pop that out. And so now I have this nice little notch. And since there's no wording on here, it definitely makes that a little bit more distinct for my envelope there. So you can then, you know, do some collage on your flap and on your back if you're not going to glue it down. And then these can go this way, just, you know, you can slide them right into your book that way. I think they make great books that way. Or I'm sorry, great little additions to your junk journals that way. You could also glue it down if you wanted to maybe make a little side pocket there if you wanted to do that. So that's fun in that way. All right, 2 down. Now, the other thing that you can do with these is you could cut them in half and make them into smaller envelopes. And I kind of like that idea too. But that's up to you, how big you want to do them. And like I said, since this is pretty durable, you could do that without any problems at all. All right, so we got one more book page type to look at. And that's a really big page here. And I didn't think that this size book page, even if I just used one, would fit into any of my journals. So I was going to try to cut this one down and maybe make 2 envelopes out of it. So what I wanted to, since this book page kind of looks like it has 2 distinct sections, I was just going to cut them off into those sections. So I'm just going to cut down pretty close to the edge of the wording here. So I'm not even sure if it's a 1/3, maybe even a little more than that. But so now I have 2 pieces of paper, and this one I can make a nice tall envelope if I want to. And let's see what page. I think I want my birdie flaps on that side. These guys are cute too, but we can have our flaps coming down this way. And you could certainly, you know, cut off some of the blank space if you wanted to do that. But I'm just going to fold this up and then give myself a little bit of a flap. And once again, we can sew around this, or you could glue it to make it work that way. Now, the other thing that you can do with these flaps is you could fold them in to make a triangle flap if you wanted to and cut them off. Or not cut them off. You don't even have to cut them off if you don't want to. So you could, let's see if I can do this here. Try and get it close to the middle to line them up. And now your flap, oops, you probably want to put it down a little bit more, and maybe even fold this down. Give myself a little room there. We're going to fold that down just so that it meets the end. So I kind of like that even better. So when I sew this one, I'll do the same type of sewing. I'm going to sew just all the way around it, but I added this little flap here so that we have a nice pocket there, and then our flap comes all the way down. So let me give this a sew and I'll be right back. And look how cute that turned out. So now I have this great little pocket here, and I have this nice flap with my birdie looking at me upside down, which I kind of like that he's doing right there. So that's another easy way to do it. And then I had this piece left over that I cut off. We're going to make a nice tall skinny envelope out of this one. So all I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to fold it almost maybe 2/3 of the way up there, and fold that down. And then when I fold my flap over, I'm going to have a nice tall envelope that I can use. And I really love that. And what I'm going to do actually on this flap is I'm going to round these corners. And I don't know if that ragged edge will do it, but we'll give it a try. Wants to fight me a little bit. Try it this way. There we go. All right, and I love the look of that. And so this one, once again, I'm just going to stitch around the outside. I think this, because it's smaller, instead of doing a zigzag, I'm just going to do a straight stitch around it and see what that turns out like. So I'll be right back and we'll take a look at that one. And there you have it. A nice long pocket there with our little rounded edge top. I think that looks really good, and it would look nice with the little collage right there. All right, so let's see what we did. We did these two with our really big book page. We did one like this with it was a nice big envelope for you to do lots of collaging on to put in your journal. And then out of that same flowering book, we did a square envelope. And then the last thing was our old book page envelopes, where we did a couple of different kinds of folds there. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and you'll try to go make some pockets. Get some done ahead of time so that when you're ready to do your journals, you'll be able to just pick and choose, do some collage, and get them into your journals. Let me know if you like this video. Please hit the like button. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and do that so that you can be notified of any other videos I have coming out. Thanks for watching today, guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye.